Hey guys, and welcome into a new BUZZCast here at Buzzworthy Radio. I'm Novell J. Lee, and as you can see, I'm pretty much right now watching that 70s show in the background. You see my Reese's hoodie as well back there, but what better way to spend a Sunday than bringing you the latest edition of our BUZZCast with Jeff Giles? I mean, honestly, we talked about everything on this show. We went from General Hospital to One Life to Live to The Young and the Restless. I mean, we talked about everything. Nothing was off limits on this show. And we did this podcast for about a week ago, actually. And I'm already ready for the next one. I'm ready for a part two continuation of this show. But sit back, relax, and enjoy our interview, our BUZZCast, as I like to call it, with Jeff Giles. Take a look. Curious. So I'm pretty sure you know who I am by now, and even though you might see glitches in the video aspect of it, don't worry, we're gonna also have it on audio. But my name's Novell Lee, and you may know me as the host of Buzzworthy Radio. And this podcast that I'm having right now with my guest has been a few years in the making. I can't tell you how many years because we've been going back and forth, mainly on Jeff's side than mine, where he's literally been messaging me going, when am I going to be on your show? When am I going to be on your show? When am I going to be on your show? And it looked pretty grim there at one point, but then all of a sudden it came back, and then all of a sudden we had you here, and then it didn't happen. We had you here again, didn't happen, and then here we are today. We finally made it happen. So
we're together. At
we
last.
finally did it at last. Jeff Giles is with me. I'm finally so thrilled that you're here because there's just so much that we can talk about, especially with our love of One Life and Heavy D and the fact that I'm on fleek all the time. And
yes, you are.
That's just literally that. So it's like there's just so much that we can encompass right now. So I'm very excited. How are you?
All right. I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm great. Listen, you have been such a huge supporter, not just of myself, but also of this podcast, because you actually have been, aside from the fact that you wanted to be on the show, you were pretty much the champion of going on Twitter and go like, when are you podcasting again? When are you putting out a new show? And it's just like one of those things when you see it and you're just looking at it going, huh, there are people that actually want this to continue. And it was surprising to me that people really pay attention because, you know, when you're doing this, you're thinking, no one's really listening to you. So
you're just
doing it, you know, and that's how I always looked at it. You know, I pretty much looked at it as like I'm doing it for myself and not for everyone else. Like this was something for me, and knowing that I had the following and seeing people, not just yourself, but others as well that have also expressed the similar statement, it really, that was huge for me. That was a big deal to me. And I just the fact that what I was doing was not for nothing. I mean, it never was for nothing, but just the fact that, you know, it wasn't for nothing in the listeners' eyes and ears, it really, that was huge for me. So I was so happy that I was able to, and it was just weird how it all came together where I just wound up going like boom, boom, boom. I had like interviews lined up. I was like, how did this happen? And then I was going like, huh, seems like I may have left the space, but not really left the space. So I think that's really awesome.
Well, I'm glad you're back. I'm a big believer in people pursuing creative endeavors outside of whatever pays their bills. Whatever your job is, I don't think it's what you were put here on this earth to do. And I think you're like the poster boy for that. I mean, you're very open about your professional life, but then also you're off on red carpets. You're hobnobbing with the daytime elite. You seem to make room for all of that in your life, and I applaud that. I think that's the way to be. That's the way to do it.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And you know, it's funny. I was just with a buddy of mine when we were having dinner, and he pretty much put it best. It's like you're guarded, but you know, you do let people into your life and what you do. And I thought that was a very astute statement, especially with the guarded part, because not many people really know who I am as a person and what I do outside of my profession. People see it in pictures, but they don't really understand it. And I don't go out of my way to explain it to them unless they ask me. Because that's one of the things about me is that if you ask me what is it that I do in order for me to do this stuff, then I will tell you. But if you don't ask me, I don't tell you. That's just not who I am as a person. And people might boast if they were in my position. I just
Hmm.
don't do it. I literally am going like, listen, you see it. You do see it, but again, I'm not really saying much with it. And if you ask me, I'll tell you. But if you don't ask me, I won't tell you. I mean, that's just when I started this in 2009. I can't believe it's been since then when I've done the red carpet stuff. And I've had the podcast since '07, but the red carpet stuff didn't begin until 2009, 2 years later after I started this show. Um, in the beginning of it, obviously I was an excited young kid. I was 20. Oh my God. Oh my God. How old was I then? 25 when I started. No, actually, I lied. 24. I'm making myself a year older than what I should have. 24 when I started doing that. And literally, just being 24 on the red carpet and everything, you're excited, you wanted to boast and everything. But even then, I didn't do that.
Good.
Because it was not just humbling, but it was also, if y'all, I didn't really go out of my way to tell them that this is what I was doing. And then as it progressed, more people then started asking, what do you do? What do you do? Because I thought you were just a pharmacy guy. I thought you were just pushing pills to pay the bills. And while that's accurate, that's accurate. It's also not just what makes Novell. Like there's more layers to me than just being in the pharmacy realm of reality. And you know, I it's just one of those things where my best friend literally said tonight is that no one. Let me tell you this. I don't think I've ever had this conversation with you. I love this. This is how excited I am. I get to have this with him in a real on real level. Uh, so I may be fanboying a little bit, but not really, but I really am. But it's just been so long. It's been so long. And just finally getting this to happen is it's just making me happy right now. But one of the things I always have done when it comes to people, because a lot of strangers in town come up to me and they literally just go, "You're friends with such and such. We should be friends." Like, you know this person. Oh my God, we should be friends because you know this person. And I literally just look at them and go like, "Oh my God, please go away," because the fact that you're saying that to me is insulting. I don't like the fact that I have those type of people that walk up to me and say that to me, because you don't really want to know me as a person. You just only want to know me because you only want to be in a certain circle in my life now, and that's not something that I'm for. And I always say to everybody, no matter who they are, whether it's my close friends, whether it's my casual friends, whether it's acquaintances, whatever, I always let them know, no, these are who my best friends are. And if you're not any of these people, you're not going to be in that realm of reality. And I think, especially as time progressed, especially doing what I'm doing now, not just with this, but also getting the first chance at doing the Primetime Emmys this past year, which was also a thrill for myself. Even if it was virtual, I still got to be a part of it. I still got to ask my questions in the press room. I still got to ask my questions to the winners of the Primetime Emmys, Murray Bartlett being that one, and it got shouted out on Variety, and I was just like sitting here and I was going, oh my freaking God, this is literally a thing. And doing this stuff at the Monster Media Convention and getting the chance now to be a part of Fan Expo, which used to be Wizard World, and working press for that event and everything. And now people are just kind of coming up to me, I'm not a fan of that. I guess that's the thing. I'm not a big proponent of that just for me, for them to just come up to me and just now being like, oh, in a sense, he put it the best way possible. You're pretty much like the social celebrity in your town. And I'm going like, yeah, I noticed that, but I don't like it.
Sure. You don't want to be, you don't want people to see you as useful to them.
That's a really
in
good
that
way of
way,
saying that.
right?
Yeah, that's a really good way of saying that. And I'm not upset at the fact that they feel offended when I tell them, no, you're not this to me. And
Yeah.
they and some do, but I'm also going like, that's not my problem. I don't know you, so why should I be upset by this? But that's what it's been like in the last few years. So that's kind of also why I kind of kept to the vest with a lot of this stuff. Like they'll see it in pictures, but I also am going like, I'm not telling you how I got to be a part of it unless you really want to know. That's why when I say, I'll tell you if you ask me, because then you really want to know how I do it. I'm not just going to tell you just to tell you. I'm only going to tell you if you ask me because you really want to know and you're invested in what I do. So that's really my makeup. And I guess that's really why I am the way I am.
Well, I'm glad that you are the way that you are. And really, I just like to see you doing all this stuff. I love that you are as engaged as you are in your creative pursuits and that you have been as successful as you've been. It's been a lot of fun watching you do your thing for the last, oh man, how long have we known each other? Probably close to 10 years.
I was going to say, it's about 10 years. Yeah. Because when did you do Brandon's show? You did Brandon's show, and shortly after that, that's when we got into contact.
Yeah.
It really wasn't. And even then, we weren't even talking about you being on my show. It was just a matter of we just clicked, and that was it. We just hit like a mutual like something, and it probably was Heavy D at the time because that's literally what it was. I think we just kept talking about Heavy D, and we just like quoted Heavy D songs all throughout the entire time.
Well, I mean, that's you living up to your creed, right? I mean, you saw that I put out this book.
I did.
And you weren't asking me questions about how I did it or who you could talk to, that I talked to, stuff like, we were bonding over shared interests. But yes, it was after I talked to Brandon, and Brandon is another person that I wish would, re-engage with his podcast specifically, but just whatever feeds him outside of work. Doing that show was a huge boost to the One Life to Live book. He really helped spread the word in a big way.
He did. I listened to that show, and I listened to a lot of Brandon's shows, and I was a big promoter of his show on this show. And when Stardust Radio was still a thing, when Joanne was hosting, and it was the same thing. And I supported my people. I really did. So I loved boasting about him, and that's the other thing. I boast about my people, and I don't boast about yourself. You boast about it, like who you love, and
yes.
Getting the chance to listen to that show with you on it, that was incredible to me. There was just so much about One Life I really didn't know because I really wasn't a one lifer 100%. I did get into it obviously in the realm I'm in, but my OTP was As the World Turns. That was my number one love. It's still my number one love, even though it's been gone now for 13 years. But it's As the World Turns, it was my number one show. That was it. I got into One Life to Live over time. I really do believe the first story that really did invest me into the show, where I was able to watch it sporadically, was when Megan died in 1992. And, I was watching that, not really understanding what was going on at the time. I was only 7 at the time, but I knew who Megan was. I knew Jake, and I I was able to start the story where she was dying, not in the hospital, already on the deathbed. I started the show when she was like the storyline started where she was dying. So I remember that vividly, watching that at the time. And so I thought that was really interesting to see that. And I kind of understood it at the time, being as a young kid, like what was going on, but not really. But I knew there was something important going on. There was something important happening.
I assume somebody else in your house must have been watching this show.
My house at the time wasn't ABC.
Okay.
We were all CBS, hence why I was a CBSer.
All right.
But I was just like flipping through, just like seeing what else was on the other networks and everything, because I used to watch Santa Barbara when it was on NBC, and so I was always like flip flopping around. So I was watching Santa Barbara, I was watching Days of Our Lives, I was watching Another World. So I was able to at least watch multiple channels because I was taping it in the one room and then I was watching it another network live in the other room. So there was that, and then like I said, I really wasn't watching One Life to Live fully at the time. I was as far as ABC shows were going, the most I really watched was the other three, which was Loving, All My Children, in General Hospital at the time.
Right.
One Life, it wasn't my wheelhouse because As the World Turns was on, so I wasn't watching it. So it was As the World Turns at 2 o'clock, no questions asked at that time. So that's why I really didn't know too much when it came to One Life to Live. I mean, the only thing I really knew about the show was before the. I hate saying this, but this is how I describe it. The only thing I really knew after Peebo Bryson's theme song, it changed to the rape opening, and you've seen me say it. I'm sure you have on Twitter, where I call it the rape opening.
I mean, you can't talk about daytime for very long without talking about rape, right? It's a really weird tradition on these shows. I really only know the ABC ones very well, but it comes up again and again and again. For whatever reason, these head writers seem to. I guess less now. You can't really get away with it now, but for
Not
a long
really.
time, yeah, rape was like it was like a gateway to romance for some of these folks in a really weird way.
And this, me knowing some of the history of Luke and Laura,
Yeah.
I didn't know that aspect of it until later on in life, and finding out that he actually did rape Laura before they got married.
I mean, they downplayed it for very
they downplayed it for a very long time, and I think the first time I really knew of that factoid was when ABC aired that primetime special of General Hospital's 35th anniversary, and they did the interviews with the cast members, and Anthony Geary and Jeannie Francis were talking about the fact that Luke had raped Laura, and that was my first time knowing that fact, because I didn't know it, that he raped her in the 70s, and I was just my mind was blown at that, because I really thought that it was just like a big love story, because when I started watching General Hospital, it was around the time Luke and Laura already came back to the show. It was around the time of BJ's death is when I really started watching it. It was like shortly before that. It was around like when Ryan Chamberlain, it was the double wedding, and he was about to blow up the church. So that's when I really started watching it, and it progressed from there. So that, me looking at Luke and Laura, I was going, it's the true like super couple.
Yep.
And then of course, finding out that he raped her, and then here's this, Uncle's like, he raped her? What the hell? So that was a big shock to me, and learning that. But I will never not call that One Life to Live opening from 1992 to 1995 the rape opening, because you really watch it, folks, if you really watch that opening, it literally is a rape opening. You see this dude lock the door with this girl. You see the woman's eyes, and you're basically looking at this dude that basically he forced himself on her. He locked the door. This clock smashed on the floor, and she gets pregnant, and she's crying, and then she finally finds a guy that's Prince Charming and raises the baby. And that's why I'm going like, okay, so we basically have a One Life to Live opening sequence that basically is showing every single day for 3 years this woman getting raped by this guy, getting pregnant, and then finally finding the right guy, raising the kid, and then she's happily ever after. I was like, this really spoke the tone for that show during that era, especially once Marty was raped by Todd and the rest of them.
Yep.
And that's the other point too. Nobody talks about the other two that were in the room with it. They always bring up Todd. They don't talk about Powell at all. They never bring up Powell Lord at all during that rape. I was like, it was 3 guys in that room that raped that woman. You only talk about Todd fucking Manning. You don't talk about Powell Lord. How is that? How is that even a thing?
I can't answer that for you.
No,
I wasn't even watching the show at that time. For me, the Peebo opening will always be the opening for that show. That theme song, those opening credits, that for me is One Life to Live. I didn't really watch any of them during the 90s.
You know what's funny that you say that about the Peebo, Bryson? This is a funny trivia factoid. I had went on one of my opening themes tangents on Twitter, and I posted the rape opening at the time on there. Chris McKenna, who played one of the Buchanan kids on the show, he responded to that saying how everybody on the show was so mad that they changed it to that after Bryson opening. The cast was not happy that it went from that to this.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a very interesting trivia piece that he brought to the Twitter sphere when I posted that, where he mentioned that the cast was not fond of that opening at all.
I would imagine that a lot of the audience wasn't fond of it either. I think that one of the things that's really cool about these shows is how you come to feel like you know the place that the show takes place in. And that opening was unique to me in that, you know, obviously they weren't really showing actual buildings where the characters worked and lived or whatever, but they did show what looked like Llanview behind these characters' faces. You know, it added to you feeling like you knew where things were happening. You I don't know. I think for the people who watched every day and we're doing things like sending gifts, sending wedding dresses to the cast members, you know, that only enhanced the feeling that they were there. That there was an actual, that Llanview was an actual place.
I still not crack up, but I just think it's adorable when they see people send actors like flowers or like gift baskets, all that stuff to the actors on the show. It's adorable because I love the fact that they're that invested to the characters and storylines and whatnot, and it just, as you just said, it makes them feel that, you know, they're part of them basically, especially when it comes to couples. You know, they are always sending the couple, like the couples on the show, this stuff, and you know, like I said, I think it's adorable. I think it's adorable. I really do. I don't knock it at all. I wish I got some of that stuff that they was. But, you know,
it's adorable until it's toxic as hell. You know, you see the discourse on Twitter. Sometimes people seem to lose track of the boundary between reality and television, and they tag actors and they say terrible things to them. You know, that part of it is super unfortunate. But you know, I saw, and I think you probably did too, the folks who paid for what was it, a Skywriter for
I did.
The kids who play Spencer and Trina on General Hospital. I thought that was great. Those are two stellar actors. One of the better handled slow burn romances that I've seen on daytime in recent memory, and it was nice to see. It's nice to see it, you know, resonating with the fan base in that way.
I think it's really cool how there's a lot of people invested in that relationship, especially
Yeah.
since it's been the first interracial relationship since Simone and Tom Hardy from the 80s.
Was that the
And
first ones on GH since then?
yeah,
Jesus.
yeah. So that's why I always look at it and I'm going, wow, like that's huge for them. And
That's
there was
incredible. I
that is
can't believe that's the first time they've done it since the 80s.
since the 80s. And no one really thinks about it until you get other Twitter followers that talk about it,
Yeah.
because there was someone, and I think it was Donald Peebles, that actually said this. The first thing he said was, "How is it that in the span of 60 years of this show, you've only had two black weddings on the show in
Right.
60 years?" And then that's when I went, huh, well, if we want to continue that, we only had one interracial relationship in a matter of 60 years on this show. So we can also put that in the ring too. But, uh, but in hindsight, yeah, I just can't believe that it's not my color, my race is not fully represented in such a way on this show after 60 years.
I am not a daytime scholar across the board, but I would venture to guess that most of these shows have not. Black folks are like the lifeblood, the backbone of daytime,
Yeah.
and by and large, that audience has really not been served very well at all by any of these shows. GH right now, I think, is probably better than it's ever been in terms of representation, but
I agree. No, I
uh,
agree with that. I do agree with that. It has been better in recent years. If
but the black audience has been given taken for granted, I think, to a very large extent, historically by all these shows.
all the shows, even though I will give The Young and the Restless credit where credit's due. Listen, I'm not gonna sit here and deny that they never represented the black community on that show, because they did for a very, very long time, especially when Bill Bell was still alive and with us. Um, you know, growing up with watching the Winters Clan and the Hastings Clan, like watching those characters uh, through, throughout the years and penning them in such a way where it did resonate with the black audience. And Drusilla not being able to read, she was illiterate. And Nathan taught her how to read, and before that, Nathan didn't know how to read, and then he learned how to read, and now he was teaching Drusilla how to read, and then Drusilla became this not just experienced ballet dancer, but then she became a model, and then Neil Winters is working in Newman Enterprises. He had a really big position in Newman Enterprises. Olivia Hastings is the doctor. It was just, you were able to see how they were able to come from nothing into something, and I think that was really the way they crafted those stories for them was absolutely incredible. Um, Unfortunately, as you just said, that hasn't been well represented in recent
No,
years. It hasn't
and
been well
also like
represented at all.
I feel like right now on GH you have a lot of black characters who just happen to be black. Like that is not
Oh,
the
you and I have that conversation multiple times. We both said that to each other.
it's not the sum total of their identity on the show. They're just characters who are black. And I
Yeah.
think that is a really significant step in the right direction. Here's hoping they continue. Like, historically, these shows, the representation will kind of bubble and flare up. And then whatever family is the focal point of that will like, they'll go away, they'll be killed off, whatever. So I hope that doesn't happen here. I hope it continues. I also really like the way they've been mixing up the the contract actors, the faves with the folks that like longtime viewers really want to see,
Hmm.
recurring people. I feel like they're doing a very good job of putting a bunch of different people on screen on a regular basis. I like that.
No, that's really good too. I just seeing like with Anna and Felicia and
Yeah.
That crew mixing it up with the new crew. I mean, they're bouncing well off of each other. I think it's meshing very well now. I don't know what happened within the recent months because even I was kind of going, what's happening in Port Charles right now? That's so pissed off. But then all of a sudden, February sweeps hit, and then it was just a big shift to where I was going, oh, now I gotta talk about it. Like, let's go. Let's go. But
Yeah.
it was a nice change. I was very happy about it, and I'm very happy. The show's turning 60 in another 3 weeks.
Yep.
And I mean, like I said, it's incredible that that this is now the longest running daytime show that's on the air right now. And the fact that they are bringing, or at least utilizing, people from the older generation that we all love and everything, and mixing it up with the newer cast members, I think that's really the best way to utilize them, and it makes it that much more enjoyable to watch it. So I agree with you 110% on that.
They seem to really be doing it too. I think there was a period of time when anytime they brought back somebody from the past, it was like, oh shit, they're going to die, or they're going to turn out to be a murderer, or, a serial philanderer. Like they would turn these characters upside down to accomplish some kind of storyline goal. So when I saw that Christina Wagner was on contract, at first I was astonished. And then I thought, oh shit, she's, of course, like Felicia's going to be murdered or something. But it seems like they really genuinely want to use these characters in the right way. I love it. Just like you said.
I was right there with you when I heard that she was coming back. And when I found out that they put her on contract, I was going, Felicia's back on contract?
Yeah.
After how many years she was recurring, she's now on contract with the show? What? I was like, there's got to be something going on. Like, there's got to be a catch here somewhere. But no, I mean, listen, when they had her kill off Peter, I was applauding. So
hell yes, that was great.
I was applauding, and immediately I said, "Oh yeah, they're going to totally use her now." So that's all it had to take for you to go, like, yeah, they're not wasting her. So that was really it for me. So I was very happy with that, and utilizing Jane Elliott as well, as the fact of honoring the fact that she still wants to enjoy her time as well, but also utilizing her too. I think that's great. I think that's great that they're able to work that out with her.
She's so good, and it makes sense for that character to come in for a couple weeks and stir shit up and then disappear again. Yeah, she's outstanding. All I want now is more Tristan Rogers.
Tristan Rogers has been great anyway. I mean, let's be real. When is not Tristan Rogers a freaking beast?
I mean, I get the feeling that he has pissed some people off at the show, and maybe that's why he's not on as much as he ought to be. But yeah, he's great. I love him.
He's definitely been vocal. He's definitely been vocal. We've seen it, obviously, and I definitely appreciate the honesty. I'm not gonna lie. I definitely
100%.
But when he is there, he gives it his one. He gives it his 100% to Robert, and I applaud that. So, whenever he's back, I'm always looking forward to Robert Scorpio intermixing it with whomever he is. Yes, it's always Anna, but he does get his time in with other people, and he's great at it. So he's definitely been one of my favorites for years.
Yeah.
And, I wish I had the opportunity to watch him on General Hospital growing up, and I never did, but I knew of his history due to, obviously, my relatives. They were able to tell me about their history of Robert and Anna and everything. And, I saw him on other shows before he came back working on General Hospital. He did this short stint when he was on The Bold and Beautiful at one point, which, ironically, y'all, they are airing those episodes now on YouTube. So if you want to see Tristan Rogers on The Bold and Beautiful, they're getting uploaded onto YouTube as we speak.
He did a few stints on that show, right? Didn't he play some kind of a gangster or something?
The one I saw, he played a detective.
Oh shit!
Which is what they're airing right now on the channel. So, I started rewatching those again, and I was just going like, yeah, I remember this, I remember that, I remember him doing this, and it was great. So just seeing him in that realm, even after knowing who he was as Robert Scorpio, I thought that was great. So just to relive that was awesome. And then, then YouTube is a great place to where people are just somewhat showcasing to people, even now Twitter, where they're posting the short clips of them from back in the day, and getting the chance to see him when he first came on in the 80s and up into when he left. Now getting to see that history myself, I think that's really cool. And that's what I love about these soap fans, is that they have that stuff in their arsenal that they're sharing with everybody else. And, getting the chance to finally see it, it's absolutely incredible. And, and the perfect segue into this question for you is just, how did you get involved with the book at all? Like, how did this even start for you?
It was an accident. Really, One Life was, so I grew up in your household was CBS. My mom was a big Love in the Afternoon viewer. So
ABC, yeah.
ABC, when I was a kid, all my children, One Life to Live and General Hospital were on every weekday. But for me, I was a kid in the 80s, and General Hospital was like the most exciting show out of any of them, because that's where all the goofy shit was happening. And, for me, when I was 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, it didn't see, like, if I went back and I watched it now, it would probably be at least faintly embarrassing much of the time. But in the moment, I thought it was like, it was so exciting. I wanted to be Frisco Jones. I thought, I thought Scorpio was great. All those characters, Sean Donnelly,
Oh,
Tiffany,
man.
Holly.
Yeah. I would love to. All right. I'm with you on the Sean Donnelly one.
Yeah, man. It was. So anyway, I grew up with that stuff. I kind of fell away from it in the 90s. Other things became more important than watching soaps. I came back to General Hospital when when Frisco returned in '89, and then sort of fell away from it. I watched it again when he came back for the BJ's Heart storyline that you mentioned, which, one of the all-time killer storylines in the history of soaps.
Absolutely.
I'm still pissed that they killed off Tony Jones with a monkey virus after 30 years of faithful service or whatever it was.
That was rough to watch that live. It really was. I was not. Yes. I loved Brad Mull in that role, and
just tremendous.
Just the fact that they sacrificed that character during that storyline was absolutely.
Yeah, and as a footnote, I think you do, as a writer for a show like this, you do yourself a disservice when you get rid of a character like that who is normal, ordinary, fundamentally decent, and yet still can mix it up with storylines about microchips and super spies or whatever. I really think you need to have those types of characters on the canvas. But anyway, at one point, I thought it would be fun to interview a music supervisor for a daytime show. And One Life to Live at that time was, I'd started watching it during the writer's strike in 2008.
2008, yeah.
And I noticed that they were really making an effort to show a lot of live music. They had the Plain White Tees. I think Lionel Richie was on the show. Trying to remember Timbaland. They really mixed it up. And so I thought, well, who is this guy who is booking these acts? And it was a guy named Paul Glass, who I interviewed. We talked about the life of a daytime music supervisor and struck up a friendship. And every time I talked to Paul, he would tell me these great behind the scenes stories from One Life. Mm-hmm. And I think more than once I said to him, you should write a book. And he was like, you should write a book. And I thought, well, who the hell am I? Like, I've never been on a set. I don't know these. Why? But then they announced the cancellation. And I thought, well, shit. Yeah. If anybody's going to write a book, it should be now. And I guess it might as well be me. So I'm trying to remember who who the first person I talked to was. I think it may have been, oh boy,
Stumped you
it,
here.
it, it might have been Marilyn Chris, but I could be wrong about that. Um, but I just did it like one actor at a time. There were some actors that I was able to get contact information from through IMDb Pro. There were others that I needed other actors to hook me up with. I think Paul might have put me in touch with one or two, but that's just how it happened. It snowballed. I spent like a year talking to actors, and then when I finished it, it kind of dovetailed with the Hulu Prospect Park revival of the
Okay.
show,
Okay.
which was cool for the timing of the book, but also sort of unfortunate in a way because there were people that I couldn't talk to at that point, like Michael Easton, Roger Howarth, um,
Right.
Frank Valentini, Ron Carlivati. There were people who were still affiliated. Like nobody really knew who was in charge of anything. Photos, nobody knew who owned photos. Actors who were involved in the different iterations of the show or under
Right.
contract to ABC, like nobody. Anyway, so there were some folks that were off limits to me at that time, which is unfortunate. But there's the answer to your question. It was an accident. It was because of Paul. He made it. He just kind of hipped me to the fact that the behind the scenes life of these shows is almost as interesting, maybe in some cases even more interesting than what you see on screen. And what I learned while talking to these people is that, I think there's always an inclination that people have to put actors on pedestals. And they seem like they lead these glamorous lives. Even with you on the red carpet, everything looks so beautiful and glamorous. These are really lunch pail actors. These are blue collar people who, in the grand scheme of Hollywood, they're very blue collar. They don't make outrageous amounts of money.
Right.
They work a lot. The work that they do is really acting. It's very difficult acting, and they deserve a lot more respect than they get from a lot of people.
Okay. I can say so much to that last thing.
Right?
So yeah, I will start off with telling you a little story. It's not really a story, but it's an anecdote, I guess. And it was definitely towards the beginning of when I started this show. I had Todd Rotundi on the podcast, and for those of you who don't know that name, he played Bryant Montgomery on As the World Turns from 2000 to 2001. So he was on the show for a year, and at the time he had a band, and I had his band on the show, and I still talk to certain people from that band to this day, and I love them to death. And one of the things that Todd had pointed out, especially for soap actors who are new to the scene, he said, like, depending, you could probably make $1,000 per episode. He said that on our show, and I was just going, in my head, I was going like, I didn't even think they made that much per episode when he told me that, especially during that time. It was 2000. I was thinking it was less than that. So
Even then, though, you got to like do the math here. These shows are on for 200 odd episodes a year. So depending on how popular your character is,
mhm.
that is not. It's good money. You're
Yeah,
not making $20 million, but it's good money.
yeah. And so I just thought that was very interesting to hear that because that kind of threw me off guard because I was thinking
Yeah.
of something else. And also, I will never not say that soap opera actors get shit on
Yeah,
because
they do.
they look at this as it's a complete another mockery. And I'm sitting here going, okay, you watch The Walking Dead? And I say yes. They tell me yes, I watched The Walking Dead. I was like, really?
That's
So
a soap.
that's a soap opera. You didn't know that?
The fucking Sopranos. That's a soap. Anything with an arc
Anything that
that
is
you
a
can.
continuation of a
Yes.
story is a
Yes.
soap opera.
Yes.
So we can even at times say Law and Order Special Victims Unit is a soap, even though it's episodic, it
Yeah.
still acts on soap opera tendencies.
Yes.
But I'm just sitting here going like, The best example I could give you, aside from The Walking Dead, that is a soap opera that is not really classified as a soap opera, is Friends.
Okay,
Friends is a soap opera that is masked as a sitcom.
sure. All those characters have arcs from start to finish. Sure.
They
Yes.
all, and I mean, the biggest arc was Ross and Rachel,
Yes.
all the way up until the end of the show.
Right.
Every cliffhanger that that show had, except for two of them, revolved around Ross and Rachel. And I'm just sitting here going like, even the creators of the show said that in interviews that it's a
Yeah.
soap opera masked as a sitcom. I mean, let's be real. They also named the characters after All My Children characters. Really think it's not a soap opera? Come on. So there's a lot of things you watch in prime time that are indeed soap operas.
Yeah.
I don't care what Shonda Rhimes says. Grey's
Right.
Anatomy is a soap opera.
Absolutely a soap opera.
I don't care what Shonda Rhimes said. Scandal was a soap opera.
Yes.
Everything that Shonda Rhimes did is a soap opera. She
100%.
loves to say that it's not, but
I
no.
didn't know that. She's full of shit if that's what she says. I had
Oh
no
no,
idea.
there's been plenty of interviews that come out that people say that her shows are soap operas and she refutes it like nobody.
No, fuck that. And the thing, Shondaland or whatever, those shows have the distinct advantage of only airing 20 odd episodes per year max.
Mm-hmm.
Think about writing 200 plus episodes of a show every year into perpetuity. I cannot even imagine how quickly you would get burned out churning out stories at that rate. People ignorantly focus on the goofy shit that happens on daytime.
Yes.
But what they ignore is the fact that there is something so unique to this long form serialized drama that when it's on all cylinders, it is so impactful. It hits in a way that no other type of show can. And even like, oh man, even just like offhand moments at times, I think because you're looking at characters who have so much history on the canvas or with each other or both, any particular scene can just be a gem. I'm thinking right now of a scene that what's the name of the kid who plays Spencer? Nicholas Alexander Chavez.
Yes. That's
That
right.
kid is fucking brilliant. I love when these young actors come on these shows and they are just chucked into the fire. In the beginning, it's always adorable. It's like watching a baby bird try to peck out of its shell. And the really good ones, they become forged in that fire very quickly. He is a tremendous example of an actor who has really risen to the challenge. He is fucking outstanding. And there was a scene with him and Jeannie Francis, who is always flawless, of course. They were in the hospital together. He was talking about Esme's baby.
I watched that scene. I know exactly which scene you're talking about.
Yeah, man. And he blows up at her and she flinches and then he dies.
I did see that part. Yes, she did.
Yes. And she meets him where he is. Oh my God, it's so good. You can only get that on daytime. So people who shit on these shows don't know what they're talking about.
The thing that people also need to realize when it comes to these shows and these actors is that when you look at a primetime show, they get to really know their lines in 7 days. They have 7 days. They have more time, where these soap actors get new scripts every single day.
And they get one take.
One take. Yeah. Before they used to do retakes when there was more of a budget, but now it's basically you block the scene and then you do your line. And then there's going to be instances where you're going to get the pink pages there on the set. So these actors are learning 70 to 80 pages of dialogue per day, new scripts per day. And I'm sitting here going like, so you're talking crap on these daytime actors, but these guys are coming in having to know their lines every single day of new scripts.
Not only that, I think people who listen to you probably know this, but just in case they don't, the agony of block taping, they tape according to who they've got and which sets are up. So when I did the One Life to Live book, they were already doing block taping. I don't think they were up to doing whatever they're doing now, like 6 episodes a week or maybe even more now. I don't even know what it is, but
It depends. Yeah, it depends because some have like the dark days of the week. So
Mhm.
they're doing 2 episodes a day.
Right.
So I know Days of Our Lives, obviously, because they were
Oh, they're
that far
insane.
ahead.
Yeah.
They're doing multiple episodes per day of the week, and there's gonna. I think this month it's actually starting the Peacock actual episodes now. That should be starting this month with Bo and Hope's return. So
But
now we're finally getting to that.
actors would tell me that they would have to get together in the dressing room and draw diagrams. Like, who am I to you today? Do we hate each other today? What's the state
Oh
of our,
yeah. Okay.
because it isn't linear necessarily. So not only are they absorbing all this dialogue and they're doing all this stuff on the fly and they don't have multiple takes to do it, but they also have to negotiate this budget driven a method of taping that is very difficult.
The other thing I will say, and not to really knock on So fans at all, but it's also when you talked about Nicholas as Spencer coming into the show. I watched when he first appeared, and the first thing that soap fans do is already criticize the actor or actress outside of the gate. They did that
Yeah.
with the recast of Trina, and I'm
Yeah.
just sitting here going, give them a chance.
Give them
Give them a chance.
five episodes at least.
Like, just
Yeah.
give them a chance. This is like their first show, and
Yeah.
they gotta, I'm sure they walked in and they were nervous as hell, doing this. I mean, that happens with all new actors on a program. And I've heard stories from previous like people who are now been a part of the soaps over 20 plus years, if not 30 plus years, talked about their first days on set and how nervous they were. These are the same in a sense, the same people. They're nervous coming in. Like we said, they're learning momentous amount of lines per day. They
Yep.
have to get everything set up as soon as they get on that sound stage, blocking, and immediately as soon as they yell action, they have to recite their lines. There's really no more takes except the one. So you have to give them time to finally find their footing, and once they do, some don't, but some do. And once they find their footing, then all of a sudden, I'm just sitting there going like, yeah, remember the days when you first came on, you were actually getting shit? Remember
I
that?
always think about Joe Lando telling me that when he left One Life and went to Dr. Quinn,
Mm-hmm.
he was so caught off guard by how much less he had to do.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm getting paid to just kind of sit on a horse and say a few words every episode. He was probably making more money there than he did on One Life to Live, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I will. I love, obviously, Procter and Gamble soaps were my livelihood, mainly World Turns and Guiding Light at the time. And someone even said it best in my feed that I feel like a lot of the Procter and Gamble actors became more prominent after they left their respective shows, and I'm kind of going, you might have a point. We had
Meg
Meg
Ryan,
Ryan. Meg Ryan was one. Julianne
Julianne
Moore.
Moore,
Uh, Stephen
Kevin
Weber.
Bacon.
Stephen Weber. Kevin Bacon when he was on Guiding
Yeah.
Light. Billie
Alec Baldwin.
Eilish's parents. Since they were respectively on As the World Turns and Guiding Light. Yeah.
Yep.
That was an interesting factoid to find that out last year that they played on World Turns and Guiding Light. I was like, oh, Billie Eilish's parents were on 2 of the shows I watched. Interesting.
I had no idea. You just taught me something. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was a very big surprise. So there, Marissa Tomei was the other one.
Right.
Jennifer Landon, obviously, bring her up as well. There was just so many people. Jason Biggs was the other one. Gosh, there was just so many.
Really not. Jason Biggs is really not on the same level as anybody else that you just mentioned. But yeah.
No, but it's still he did find something after that, especially with Guy and but yes, it's just even freaking Brad Pitt was on another world.
Yep.
Brad Pitt of all people. And I'm just sitting there going like, it's just amazing how some of these actors still talk about their soap opera days. I think that's one of the best things
Yes.
about some of these soap actors who I follow in the media is that they still call so much love and respect to the soap opera world, and they pretty much say the same thing that we just said within the last
Yes.
10 minutes about the work ethic that soaps do, and they always talk about how soaps really taught them so much about the acting profession
Yeah.
and where
I
they
think that says a lot about an actor's character, you know?
it does.
Like I tried to get I foolishly tried to get Tommy Lee Jones to talk to me for the One Life book.
Yeah.
Crickets. But Nathan Fillion really actually got audibly angry when he was talking about the soap stigma, talking about how it pisses him off that all the stuff that we're talking about is reality, that you get typecast if you're on a soap for a long time. You're
Yes.
not going to get other work necessarily. And if you've read the book, you know, he tells this great story about Bob Woods pulling him aside at the end of his rookie
Just 3 years.
contract. Yeah. And he was like, hey, look, you got to get the fuck out of here. Whatever they offer you, just say no. You owe it to yourself to live in a van if you have to, but just like find out what else is out there. Because I think something that a lot of people don't realize about actors is there's always this tension between wanting to do a bunch of different things because that's acting and also craving the stability of a quote unquote normal life. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like Erica Slezak was always very vocally grateful to One Life for allowing her to be a mother. Nancy Lee Grahn has said the same thing.
Yeah.
You clock in, you clock out, you can go home and be with your kids. But the downside to that is what Bob Woods called these golden handcuffs. Like you can't get away from it.
Right.
You're there. You're a lifer. Marilyn Chris, when I talked to her, told me that when she decided she was done with One Life to Live,
Mm-hmm.
she actually told the producers, do not send me an offer. If I see it, I might have a hard time turning it down. I don't want to know. I'm done. This is it. Don't try to
Mm-hmm.
get me to come back, because if you do, you know, the draw is very strong. But yeah, Nathan Fillion was he was wonderful to talk to. Bryan Cranston wanted to talk to me for the book. We couldn't get the schedules to line up, but I love those people who don't lose sight of where they came from, and they don't lose the gratitude for what daytime taught them as an actor. The people who try to pretend that they were never on these shows or they don't want to talk about it or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that sucks.
I think that's one of the biggest reasons why I have so much respect for Peter Reckell.
Hmm.
You know, whenever I look at him, he fell into that mold at one point, and when he was playing Bo initially, and when he left the show and he did that short stint on Knots Landing for, I think it was 2 seasons actually. Yeah, it was 2 seasons, and I just remember hearing about how he didn't really appreciate the daytime world at that point, and knowing that he wasn't able to really find a footing outside of daytime, and then he came back to days in 1990, and he was there for like a couple of years before Robert Kelly took over the role for that time before Peter officially came back in '95. You know, he definitely expressed his gratitude for the daytime arena. He admitted that, you know, I should never have crapped on it. I should never have said anything like that. You know, he really, you know, came in and said like, yeah, I was wrong. Like you know, and you know, I have so much respect for actors that are like that. That, as you said, there are
Yeah.
going to be some that are going to piss on the fact that they were on a soap opera and don't want to acknowledge it, but he really acknowledged it. Like you know, he really came in and said, you know, Days really had treated him very well, and he, you know, he was grateful to the show. He was grateful for Bo, and I just love that. I love, you know, when One Life to Live was ending and they did the special on The View, and Judith Light came on the
Yeah.
show,
Yeah.
and she talked about the show, about how much effort they put into an hour's worth of television each day. um, and how much she saw how rigorous it was to do that all the time. I mean, everybody here who listens to this show, especially since they posted about it a few days ago, everyone knows that scene that she did, which won her the Emmy in the courtroom. I mean, listen, when you watch that scene, I really feel like that was probably the most iconic moment of anything on television. You can say what you will about Luke and Laura's wedding. Yes, that was iconic, but let's be real. 2 years earlier than that, that courtroom scene was probably the most iconic in soap opera history. Judith Light came in and did that thing. Like if you want to talk about soap opera actors and how much effort and how much work and how much they do to make the scene work, to basically come in and then just do, like, I'm sitting here going, like, she did this in one fucking take.
Maybe, we don't know. She could have had a couple. There was probably more time to rehearse. But yes, you're.
It was probably a couple of times, but literally when you
tightrope acting.
Yeah, but when you really watch that one section, that was definitely done in one take. That one section in itself was done in one take.
100%.
Really, like, went off the cuff. I'm sure probably before that it was a couple of takes, but literally as that ending part where she literally just admitted that she was a hooker.
Yeah.
Of those who don't know the character's name, Karen Wollick, which I didn't know Julia Duffy originated the role. And I did not know that until recent years, that Julia Duffy originated the role of Karen Wollick on the show. And, I loved her on Newhart, just so you know. I loved her as Stephanie on the show. Julia Duffy is my girl. But yeah, it was just interesting to find that factoid out. But then also, when you're watching it, you could probably see it was a couple of takes, but then it was just, as soon as that last part of the scene, it just stayed right on her. So you knew that was not another take done in it. And the fact that she just did that right on through, and she just burst out of tears and everything like that. And I'm just watching when it pans over to Erica Slezak, and it pans over to Jacqueline Courtney's character and Andrea Evans in the bag. And I'm just like watching Larry Wollick, and I'm just going, holy crap.
Yeah, you got to talk about Tony Call, who played Herb, who played amazing.
Herb Callison.
You got to talk about Jerry Anthony, who played Marco Dane. One of the things about One Life, and I think probably some of the shows that you watched coming up, the ones that were filmed in New York had the benefit of being those shows, the New York shows, really, in a lot of cases, subsidized the stage acting careers of Broadway players. They had those shows had a lot of stage actors who knew how to do this kind of thing anyway. So, Judith Light, stage actor, they man, so much talent. Goddamn.
Dude, there was just so many incredible people that have crossed these shows in all the years that it's been on television, and I'm just amazed at what they were able to do, and the fact that people knock it is just, it's asinine that they knock this work. And to this day, I will never understand why. I'll never understand why people look at it in such a way where they turn their nose up at it. And I'm just sitting here going like, well, go in there one day, see what they do. Like me, I'm looking at it and go like, go in there one day, see what they do. Like, can you memorize 80 pages of dialogue in one day?
I would say give it a week and see if it hooks you in, because I think, like anything, I've never watched Grey's Anatomy, but I would imagine that if you watch an episode now, to explain to somebody who's never seen the show what's happening on screen, it's going to make them laugh. It's going to sound ridiculous. I remember one time a few years ago, I like to watch General Hospital when I'm working out, because this is going to sound like a knock on the show, but it really isn't. You don't really have to look at the screen. These shows are so dialogue driven that
that's true. No, I agree.
So I was exercising, and my oldest child came into the room, and it was an episode when Tracy Quartermain was arguing for her life in front of it was like a judge in the afterlife. I think it was played by Maurice Bernard. And so my kid walks in, And he's like, "What is happening on this show?" And I had to explain. And you know, to say it out loud, it sounds more than faintly ridiculous. You talk about Casey the alien. You talk about the Ice Princess. A lot of these storylines, to explain them to somebody who hasn't watched the show and hasn't built up this suspension of disbelief over time, it's comical. So I can understand why, you know, if you talk about masks or that make you look and sound like another person or any of
Yeah.
this other shit. It's funny. It sounds corny. It sounds stupid. But sit down, watch a show for 5 days or 2 weeks and see if it doesn't hook you in. See if it doesn't make you want to keep coming back for more.
Such an escapism, and I love that aspect of it. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
obviously we knock some of the storylines that we watch, but we still watch it because we love the people who are in it.
Yeah.
You know, you were talking about certain things, and you know, obviously things that drew me, and I was like, look, I was drawn into All My Children because of Natalie in the Well. When when they introduced Janet from Another Planet, I
Yeah.
love that story. That was really the story that hooked me into All My Children in the early '90s. It was Natalie in the Well, and I was completely enthralled. Like you said, give it 5 days. I did, and
Yeah.
I kept coming back because I want to know, was she going to get out the freaking well? But like she was in there for a good solid 2.5 months, and then I'm going like, is she getting out of here anytime soon? Like I loved every aspect of that story. I love Kate Collins was amazing playing those two roles, and that was the storyline that drew me in, was just Natalie in the well, and then you know, Loving, it was more character based of why I kept watching it, but it really wasn't until like literally when it was canceled, they did the Loving Murders, and that was when I was going, oh, now you cancel it? You're down to a story that's so completely investing me right now. Now you cancel it? Like, how dare you? But that was such a good story. The Loving Murders was such a good story. I loved every aspect of that. Stone dying was, aside from BJ's death, Stone dying was another one that really roped me in. Michael Sutton was incredible. Kimberly McCullough, obviously, but that storyline itself was just absolutely phenomenal. And one of the things I loved about that was how much they promoted that story outside of General Hospital itself.
Right.
They had a special that actually aired on the Disney Channel at the time, talking about AIDS with both of those actors. They were like, you know how Jimmy Kimmel was on the street interviewing people. That's basically what they did. They were talking to people in and around Los Angeles about AIDS and everything. And I thought that was really good, especially for that channel. A lot of young people do watch that channel at the time, but I thought that was very smart on their behalf. I don't know if ABC and Disney were.
I don't remember.
I don't know if they owned, you know, at the time. I thought that came later, but they might have. And I
Yeah,
think
I don't remember.
that might be why it was on Disney at the time. So
Yeah, I'll stress again though, in that I didn't watch the show when that storyline happened, but Robin was a character and an actor that people had been watching for 10 years at that point.
mhm.
You don't get that anywhere but daytime.
I love the fact that she wasn't Sourced, you know, when she
Yes.
first came on. I think like she's really one of the only child actors on a soap that
Yeah.
never got replaced by another actress.
I,
They
I I'm sure you're right. Yeah.
I think, like, honestly, I think she was the only one, aside from, honestly, no, Cameron Grimes is the other one. That's it. Yeah, Cameron Grimes and her. They literally had them like to the point where they're probably at my hip, and they let them grow up on screen.
Yeah.
I thought that was so cool
It
because
makes a storyline like that so much more impactful.
yes, and it's just you get invested with the actor and the character because you know they
Mhm.
didn't replace them, and you got to see them grow up. You got to see them grow up on screen, and I think that's also a huge deal to me too, because
Yeah.
you know you get so invested with this one actor who's playing this role for quite some time, and then now you make them older, and now you got to get used to the new actor coming in and playing an older version of them. But letting them grow up and letting them play it out, I think that's great. I think that was so freaking
Yeah.
cool. I said
Now, whenever there's a really talented younger actor, I just have a clock going in the back of my mind, like how long before this kid flies the coop?
do that too. I do the same thing because I'm going like, all right, how long are they going to stay? Are they going to stay here with a long haul, or are they going to go out? Because a lot of the time, I think younger actors
Yeah,
they'll get that experience and run through and then they're going to look for something else after their 3 years is up.
we
And
saw the news this last week about William Lipton. I don't know if it's been confirmed, but
I
that's
haven't seen
one.
any confirmation about that though. But it's like everybody is rumoring it
Yeah,
that he's leaving because the character of Cameron said on the show that he's going to college somewhere else that's outside of Port
he's
Charles,
got a soccer scholarship to Stanford. Yes,
to Stanford, and everybody's going, oh, so he's leaving. I'm going like,
right.
well, y'all also said that they were going to kill off Roger Howard when he got hooked. So I don't know what to think of that right now until I actually see it
I don't either.
confirmed
I'm just
somewhere.
saying that that's a shoe that I've been waiting to drop because I think that kid is tremendously talented. I love watching him on screen, and I'm sad if he leaves. I'm sad, but I'm also looking forward to seeing what he does.
I feel that way right now about Nicholas Chavez because
Oh, I know he's on
I
borrowed time, man. That fucker's gonna
I
fly.
I literally said that about him. I'm going like, I don't know how much longer he's got, but I don't think it's going to be that much longer because
Right.
I really do think he's going to do his 3 years, which I think will be next year. Yeah, next year will be his 3 year. I think in 2024, I have a feeling there's going to be an announcement saying that, oh, by the way, he's out.
If they're smart, they give him Maurice Bernard money. I could They could kill Sonny Corinthos tomorrow. I could give a less of a shit. If that kid, that kid Nicholas, he could carry the show if they let him. He's really good.
He's a phenomenal actor. I mean, honestly, he really grew into that role, and so many of his screen partners, I feel, also helped him get into the level
Yes.
where he is right now. You mentioned Jeannie Francis earlier. Maura West,
God,
other
she's
one,
good.
the
Oh
other
my
one,
God.
the way that him and especially when he started with her and how they were at odds, just the mere fact that those two worked alongside each other, I really felt that upped his game a lot. Um, and I really felt that once that started happening, even him and Avery Poole, uh,
She has improved quite a bit, I think.
yeah,
She's
I
very compelling.
I felt that way too about her. I liked her as well as when she started, but I also, going like, all right, let's go. Like you can
Yeah.
make it better and everything like that. And I think getting her in the room, not just with Maura and John Lindstrom, but also with Nicholas as well as certain others, also brought her up a lot.
Yeah, I
Especially
agree.
especially within the last month, with everything culminating with Ryan's death and whatnot. I think Avery really shined within the past year, and that's one of the things
Agreed.
I love. That's one of the things I love about these younger actors is that most of them will take a liking to the veteran actors on a show to learn from them, and you can tell in their performances that they are. And Nicholas is proof positive of that because his screen partners have been really, really strong actors. You can't go wrong with Jeannie Francis or Maura West. You really can't.
The one thing, Maura West, I think they ask her to carry the load more than most. I think she's kind of been done dirty with some screen partners, but she always brings it. She is, oh my God, I would watch her anytime. She is incredible.
She can read the phone book and I'd be enthralled. Like that's
Yes,
just who she is as a person.
she's so good.
She is really, really good. Listen, and this is me coming from watching her since '95 from As the World Turns. I grew up with Carly Tenney, and I loved her since then. But it's just something about Ava Jerome is so much different than Carly Tenney. It's just something of it, especially when she first started on the show. How, in spite of her mobster ties, she was such a freaking strong, badass woman. And
Yeah.
I hated the fact that they kind of made her the brunt of Sonny and Carly.
Hell yes.
I really hated that.
It's obnoxious.
I really, yeah, I agree. I really felt that why is it that she has to lose to them all the time? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And it was like that for quite some time. I think at least 2 years before they finally. I feel like they're now starting to write her to the point of how she kind of was when she started on the show, but at least she's
Yeah.
now not in Sunny and Carly's orbit anymore. And I think maybe that's what it is. But
Agreed.
but she just sells it 100%. Like no matter what you give her, it's
She's going
literally
to give you gold.
it's
She's great. I
literally
love it.
gold.
I, I said at one point that the daytime Emmys should make a special trophy for her in the shape of like a crumpled pillow and a lit cigarette, because that's just the energy that she brings to every fucking scene. She is outstanding.
Oh,
And she's a great example of when I talked to Bob Woods, I think a lot of people forget that when Bo Buchanan came on One Life, he was kind of a dick. But if you want to keep a character around a show long term, you have to sand them down. They have to take away their edges to make
yeah.
them viable. They haven't really done that with Ava, and that's very much to the writing staff's credit. They found a way to continue to make her dangerous while still making her able to stick around in Port Charles and not have to go to jail or whatever.
I think that to your point is that they found a way to make her sympathetic to the viewers, as
Yes.
not just sympathetic but also vulnerable, because if you don't have that aspect of your character, you're one dimensional at that point, and there would be no use for you, and she would have been gone a long time ago. But they
Right.
made, and not just the writers but also that's credit to the actress herself,
Mm.
they made, like, both of them, they made the fact of Ava, we root for her. If we didn't root for her, then yeah, she would have been out. But that's, as you said, it's a credit to the writers and also credit to Maura. The same could be said about Kimberly Brown with Sheila. She's been, that character has been around since 1990. I mean, we're going on 33 years of this woman. Back between Y&R and The Bold and Beautiful, there, people can't get enough of her. But she also has those layers to where, again, she's able to show those vulnerable sides as well as sympathetic sides, because she plays off of the fact that the character Sheila wants to be loved. She never had that. She only, she wanted
Yeah.
that in her life. And I think that's really why that type of a character has lasted so long. Um, as you said with Bo Buchanan, I do remember him when I watched older episodes. He did come on as a prick, and and then they made him out to be a hero,
Yeah.
and I really felt that they really solidified that after he came back in '88, though. Uh,
Yeah.
when he
Absolutely.
when he came back in '80, of course we didn't know that that wasn't really Bo at the time.
Yeah.
But he came when Patrick was as him, and then we found out the real Bo was somewhere else. I thought that was a very interesting story. I actually did talk to Bob Woods about that storyline a few years ago, and I asked him about it. And when he came back to the show in '88, and he played those two parts, and what was it like playing those two roles, and having to come back basically as Bo, but not as Bo. It was such a great story. He at the time did not know that that was what was happening at the beginning of it until he got really into the story, and then that's when he found out that he was someone else, and which of course changed the acting style a little bit. But
Yeah.
he loved that story.
I'm sure he did.
He
And
loved it.
and I'm sure he must have been pretty bored toward the end of that run. Bo didn't really do very much that was all that interesting after a while. But Bob is such a
Yeah,
sweetheart.
he's such a sweet. Yeah, he definitely is a sweetheart. I
He called me after the book was published and left a voicemail on my answering machine to tell me he was proud of me. That's the kind of guy that he is.
he's he's so nice. I met him and his
Yeah.
wife, and this was right when Ron and Frank went over to one General Hospital when they
Uh,
over, and it was at the after party after at the Emmys, and Bob and his wife were there. There were a few one lifers that were there, and we were on the me and the wife were on the dance floor, and Bob walks up. I was like, "Wow, you're really good. You're like the only guy I would let dance with my wife." What he said to me, and I was so like, I love it. I was like, you know what? That's a solid win for me. That's a solid win. He was great though. I love talking to him and his wife. I love talking to him about that story and what life as a whole. It was just great to live that with him, and yeah, it was phenomenal. I loved it. You know, I feel like there are actors that I would be so intimidated by, and he was one of them. But as soon as I started talking to him, I was like, why was I scared of you?
Yeah. I think that's true of the majority of soap actors. Even like I went to Erica Slezak's house to talk to her for the book. You know, these are all very down to earth people in my experience.
They're very down to earth people. I also felt that way about Jerry Verdorn. And
oh yeah, he's a god. What a sweet man.
I miss him tremendously.
Yeah.
I miss him a lot, and that really hurt me when I heard that he passed. But when I had the chance to speak with him, it was just I could not believe how down to earth he was when I talked to him. I mean,
yeah,
this is somebody who's been in the game since '79, and when he came on as Ross on Guiding Light, and I loved him over there on that show. And when he came to One Life as Clint, and getting to talk to him about how the fact that they wrote the character as Asa Light, you know, and it was just incredible, and he was just so open and honest, and he even talked about the Prospect Park One Life to Live aspect of it and everything. And I'm just sitting there on the other end of the phone, and I'm just going, I can't believe I'm literally talking to Jerry Verdorn. Like, I'm literally like, bro, I'm talking to Jerry Verdorn.
I loved talking to him, and he was a guy who really, really understood the appeal of daytime, because he talked about how at a certain point in the 90s, when Sweeps Week came around, something was going to blow up, someone was going to die. And he was like, look, all you really need is people sitting at a table having a conversation. This audience will tune in for that. And he's right.
And it's true. And
I also think of him
a lot back in the day.
They did. They do it less now. I'm always appreciative when they do. But I also think of him as I watch whoever's responsible for Maurice Bernard's hair, as they've been trying to figure out what the fuck to do with his hair for the last year and a half or so. Yeah. When I talked to Jerry, he told me how, you know, when he played Clint, when he came on, his hair was colored. They made him dye his hair. Yeah. And he was like, look, you know, you start to look like a weatherman from Des Moines, because it's just ridiculous. They won't. And eventually he just demanded that they let him grow it out. And, you know, for years it looked like Maurice they were just turning him upside down when he got to the set and dipping his head in a bucket of shoe polish. It looks better now, but I wish
I like it now. Oh yeah,
gray.
I like it now. But yeah, it's interesting you talk about hair and makeup and everything. I love how, well, I talked to Hillary B. Smith, how she always would talk about how she never liked the long hair. She hated it, and she was dying to have it cut. And then, you know, when Robin Strasser came back to the show, that's when she was like, oh, they might confuse me with her. Should we cut it? And then they were, Karen Baker goes like, oh, that's a good point. And that's when they cut her off. That's when they cut it off. So I was going like, yeah, that's smart. So which one? But it's just these little anecdotes about the behind the scenes stuff. And I know one of the interviews that really sticks with me about those two shows getting canceled was I had Alicia Minshew on the show, who played Kendall Hart on All My Children, and she talked about when they got canceled and when the announcement came out, and how she mentioned they were all in All My Children. Everybody was in the room, and then the TV came down.
Yup, I've heard this story. It's pretty fucked up.
And she saw the One Life to Live cast on the screen, and that, because Alicia thought it was just going to be them, because of how it was set up. She thought it was a cancellation thing or something like to that effect, and she just thought it was going to be All My Children. It wasn't until she saw the screen with the One Life to Live cast on it, and she was going, "That's One Life to Live. Wait a minute, are they getting rid of both of us?" And then that's when the the bomb dropped, and I'm just, as you said, that I thought that was a pretty callous move.
Yeah,
Uh,
man.
in order for that to happen, like I just, like to me, I just, even after all these years, after 12 years, it's still, that was one of the worst ways to go. That was really one of the worst ways to go. I thought getting canceled on April Fool's Day was bad,
Yeah,
because
I
I
know.
will, I will still sit here and say till the day I die that Guiding Light getting canceled on April Fool's Day was the biggest, biggest joke you could ever say. But then this happened, and then I was going, oh, yeah, no, I think you dropped that.
Yeah, and the one thing I want to add is something that I think a lot of people don't really understand is that these shows, at least the ABC ones, I'm not really sure about the CBS ones, but the ABC ones, All My Children and One Life to Live, were profitable. They were not losing money. They
Mhm.
just weren't making as much money as a talk show would or a cooking show would. That part of all of this still pisses me off. You know, daytime paid for prime time for decades.
Oh, yeah.
There's no reason. It was such a stupid decision to make, uh, to get rid of these shows that were
Bringing
loved.
bringing in more viewers than their replacements were.
Absolutely, and also loved by generations of people. You know,
Yeah.
it's just it's an they abandoned the unspoken commitment to entertain in pursuit of a wider profit margin, and it's just it's too bad because when you cancel a show like that, it's almost impossible to get it back.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as we've seen when they tried to do that,
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
when they tried to do that, it didn't work out, unfortunately, so well. But the question that most of us have asked is, do you think now, with the success of Days being on Peacock streaming, could there be some type of a resurgence on a streaming platform?
I would love it if that was the case. Streaming is the focus now. Uh, Peacock, Peacock is gonna. They're planning on Peacock losing $3 billion this year, and yet it's still a cornerstone of their strategy going forward. They're all in on streaming. You would think, I mean, like fuck, if Peacock is going to lose $3 billion, don't you think that whatever it would cost to add archival episodes of NBC soaps to that platform
Mhm.
would be just a drop in the goddamn bucket? Don't you think people would turn
They
out for
will
that?
pay. They will pay
Yes.
whatever, in order to see any of that stuff. I've seen comments on Twitter all the time about it. They're going, if Peacock ever put older episodes of Days of Our Lives on, and I'm not talking
Right.
about from like the last 2 years, I'm
Right.
talking about in the
Yes.
archive. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm talking about how Bold and Beautiful is doing, where they started from episode one and
Yes.
going all the way. You know, if you're putting up episodes from the beginning, hell, I'll even say if you put up episodes from the '80s, starting from the Salem Stalker with Jake Kozacek, Salem Stalker, where people thought Marlena died, Salem Stalker. If you go that route and you put those episodes up, they're gonna pay whatever money in order
There
to watch
is
that.
an audience for that. You could put up Guiding Light, Search for Tomorrow, Another World, All My Children, One Life to Live, Edge of fucking Night. Like, I know that the networks really didn't make a priority out of being good custodians to these tapes. I know that a lot of them have been erased. I know that, the archives are
That's
not in the
what I,
state that they, yeah.
that's what I actually just heard from one of the apparently one of the actors from As the World Turns said that those tapes are gone. Like
Yeah.
all the tapes as the Waltons are now gone, um, there are no more. And I'm just sitting here going like, how in the hell did you get rid of these episodes? Like that's a lot. That's a lot of history that could easily.
Yeah. I mean, part of it I think is just general disrespect, but also I think historically television has been seen as ephemeral. You know, like the episode is on today and then it's gone forever.
It's
Uh,
forever.
but I really like. I that could be such a. I think that could be a revenue stream. You know, I think there's an
Oh,
audience there for
absolutely.
that. Yeah, I don't know. I would love it if you know you could if you could go on Hulu and watch of all my children, all of One Life to Live. If you could go, you know, these companies plead poverty anytime anything is the slightest bit expensive. Like Disney with maybe this is not maybe you're not going to know what I'm talking about, but you know the show Moonlighting with Bruce Willis and Sybil
Bruce Willis
Shepherd.
and Sybil Shepherd.
Yeah, it had a hell of a soundtrack, and so apparently that's the reason that the show has never been available to stream. But it's owned by fucking Disney. They've got all the money in the world. You tell me that they can't afford to put that on Disney Plus, and people
Yeah,
wouldn't turn out for that? I mean, come on.
that was the same thing with Hunter. I mean, Hunter was released on DVD and it is streaming, but as you said with Moonlighting, Hunter also had a soundtrack. But what they did, which I'm surprised Moonlighting isn't doing, um, they replaced, you know how they do with certain things, they replaced the music with the made house music or whatever.
Right.
So that's what they did. That's what they did with Hunter when they released it onto streaming and DVD. And I'm going like, is it that difficult to do that with Moonlighting? I'm sure it's
Right.
not. But
There are times when you know, like Bruce Willis' character sings stuff like that.
oh yeah, and then they
But
would have to cut
you
that
know,
out.
but they've got money. They've got more money than God. Why would you? I don't know. They spend all this money on all this stuff. I really think that those shows that we're talking about, these daytime shows, there's still an audience there. That would be an easy revenue stream, and I'm just waiting for somebody to take advantage of it. I remember the SoapNet days when they would talk like, "Oh yeah, we're going to air this classic episode of GH," and it's you know from 2002 or whatever.
Yeah, that was one, and that was it was like they did that. Even they do that now with General Hospital whenever they air
Yeah,
an encore episode that's from literally 5 months ago.
right.
And you know
Fuck off.
that was the one thing I loved about CBS when the holidays came around because I was always pumped when it was Christmas and New Year's. They always would when they would air the classic episodes of all before. It wasn't like something from last year. It was literally like
Mm.
for 10 to 15 years ago, and it was phenomenal during that time. I was so sad that they stopped that, and you know, I never would have thought that they would have aired a classic episode of Guiding Light from 1983, and then it, we're airing stuff from 85 and 86 and 87. I was just going like, dude, this is freaking amazing. I loved every aspect of that. I really thought they would have done that during when they weren't filming.
Mm-hmm. During
For General
lockdown.
Hospital, I should say.
Yeah.
CBS were really good with it, but with General Hospital, I'm going like, so why are we watching episodes that aired literally 5 months ago? Where's like the real stuff during this?
Or you know, there was that period before the episodes ran out when they would pad them by doing the flashbacks, you
Yes,
know, to the previous episode or whatever.
yeah, I remember. Oh my god, I
Two or
forgot
three
about that.
times a scene, there's somebody be flashing back to something that you saw yesterday.
I
Yeah.
just saw this yesterday, and I'm going like, really? Did I need a recap of this? If we wanted to recap, you could have kept it in the beginning, like y'all did back in the '90s. So why are we doing this now? If you want to do this, let's just bring it back. But remember when they oh my gosh, remember when they didn't I can't remember exactly if it was not a budget or it was something, but they couldn't air new episodes every day of the week.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to show classic episodes in the middle of the week. I think they were only
Classic episodes.
doing like two or three in the week.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here going, what's classic about this?
Yeah. The one thing I will say in the defense of the show, Frank Valentini knows how to save money. and
Yes, that is true.
often does it in a way that the viewer is not going to notice. And I'll give them credit for the Portia Curtis wedding.
Yes.
It was the first time that I can remember that an event like that took place on that show, and it seemed like there were as many, well, not as many people as there should have been, but lots of people. And they brought in new, like our fucking family was there. Like that's no small thing.
That was huge too, that they introduced the family and on that show. And I was just going like, Gavin Houston was there, and I was going, bro, like you introduced family here. I was like, you wouldn't probably have expected that last year.
No.
And I'm just sitting here going like, I think that's a vast improvement.
Yeah. You wouldn't even expected that 20 years ago. I don't
Not at all. I still think, to your point about how they have money, Chandra Wilson is making another appearance again, and I'm sitting here going, like, she's on Grey's fucking Anatomy. You mean to tell me that you're able to pay for her to guest star?
Right.
But you can't do this and this and this with the money. But
and how much is that really going to move the needle? I know that I really don't care that she's going to be on the show. It makes no difference to me at all. You could do away with all of those red carpet scenes when they do the nurses' ball. I don't think the show would suffer at all.
No, I don't think they've ever really done that before. I mean, they've had people like come in, but they never really done like the red carpet aspect of it until recent years. But so no, is it needed? Absolutely not. Is it somewhat fun? Yes, a little bit. But I feel that as it's not necessary to the nurse's ball.
Right.
It's not necessary to the nurse's ball. I kind of would have wanted her to see that wasn't on the red carpet. Like, I know they had her working in the hospital. I would like to see her do that, obviously tongue in cheek. But yeah, I know people say that with the nurse's ball, it doesn't look great because of lack of money for it. But I'm like, at least they are at least bringing it back. That was a staple for so many years. I at least appreciate the fact that they're keeping that tradition going.
Same.
And we can sit here complaining about it as much as you want to, but the fact of the matter is, if it wasn't here, you would complain about the ball not being here. So,
right, like they did for however many years, there was no nurse's ball. Yes,
there was no nurse's ball, and then they came back, and now you're complaining that it looks cheap. I'm like, pick your battles. Like, help the brother out at this point. So, no, I'm always happy to see that it's still continuing in whatever type of presence it is. So they're making the most of it. And like I said, some of these shows are making the most of what they got. I'm very interested to see what type of, when they say peacock money for Days of Our Lives, what exactly do you mean by peacock money? What are they building for them? I mean,
I'm pretty nervous about that. I hope it's a tremendous success. I would like to see. I would love it if this was a new path forward for the genre.
I agree, because like you, I said it in the beginning that I was worried about it. I think I even said that when I did my anniversary show, because I had Eric Martov and Martha Madison on the show, and I actually said that to them. I said, I'm going to be flat out honest. I was worried as shit because of what happened with Prospect Park. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I literally felt that way about it. But from what I'm hearing, Peacock is really invested in the show. They're really
good. I hope that's true.
And a part of me feels like it's true because they've gotten more subscribers to the streaming service than anything. I mean, they've really brought in people to subscribe and pay for it. So I can't sit here and say that they're not happy with that. They most likely are. But as you just said, I'm really hoping it's successful. I'm really hoping that it paves the way, because as you said earlier, that streaming is going to be the new way of watching shows now.
I think they've got the right writers too. Ron. I love Ron. I was pissed when he got fired from GH. He's a guy
we talked about that. Yeah,
he's got his foibles. He's got his I can understand why some people are not fans, but he loves history.
I was getting ready to say that he loves history. He does.
Yeah, and that's a really important thing for a
You
head
don't
writer on a show.
you don't get many people that are that invested to learning the history of a show when they
Yeah.
come on to write. And while he may not have been, I mean, I think he even said it that he wasn't 100% well versed in Days of Our Lives history.
I think he said he didn't know the first five. I don't think he knew
I
the
think
first
I
thing. I think he needed
I
somebody to
really
tell
do
him.
believe, yeah, I really do believe he said that. But
Yeah.
he was invested to learn about it, and also he
Yes.
listened to fans that told him about the history of the show because he wanted to make sure he did it right.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I always give him credit on is that he really invests in that nature. I mean, he did it at GH, and I was very, me looking at it, I was very surprised. I felt that his years at GH were very. It really brought the show back to life. Number one, I'll say that
Absolutely.
one of the, I mean, obviously, we even talked about it. It was like they were on the verge of being canceled before he came on. He said, for those of you who don't know this, because I'm sure you know this, but for those that don't know this, he when he and Frank came on to General Hospital, they pretty much had came on to the point where they were said to basically wrap up the show because it wasn't going to stick around. But obviously things changed and everything, worked out for the best. People started tuning in. The viewership went up higher than what was anticipated, and they kept it on. Thankfully, Ron and company were able to do that. And the the one thing I loved about during his time, and this is coming from someone who is a Sunny fan, I loved that they kind of put Sunny on the back burner.
Yes. 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 I came back to this show in like 2002. And those, I mean, 2002 to when Ron showed up,
Mhm.
Sonny, Carly, Jason, Sam ate up the entire show.
Yes, they did.
Really irritating, and so many characters were sacrificed on that altar. So yes, I agree with you completely. I love that they expanded the canvas, they added more people, they put Sonny on the back burner. Sometimes they actually made him suffer some consequences once in a while.
That
The
was
dude
my big
actually
thing
went to
about
prison for a minute.
that was my big thing about it too, is that he actually didn't get away with shit during Ron's
Yeah.
tenure. And I also, aside from the fact that he made him on the back burner, he also made Sonny a less of as a mobster, basically. Um, so I thought that was a good take as well for him.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it made me like the character even more, and because of the fact that he did not rely on his mobster tendencies at the time, as well as Carly, I felt like they made Carly a bit more
Interesting.
Cassie-esque. I said this before, right? I felt that they made her like Cassie from Guiding Light a little bit because I love the chemistry that Carly had with Todd. I love the chemistry that Carly had with Franco, even though people thought that
Yeah,
was
no, I
not.
agree with you. That was good.
But it was Roger Howard. What was I supposed to say? But I love their chemistry overall. But it was just they made Carly more interesting. I loved when she went through that change and she cut the hair. She did the whole Cassie cut. I call it the Cassie cut. And then I felt like, wow, you dressed her sexier for the show. Like you made Carly basically be like an independent woman that didn't really rely on Sonny anymore.
Yeah.
And she was only there for when it involved the kids, or she knew, like when they talked about the fact that Sonny wasn't on his lithium at the time. When they brought that, I love the fact that she was now basically on her own, really,
Mm-hmm.
and not having to rely on Sonny like we now see. But so I thought that was very interesting with the Carly character then, and even though we've always said that Carly and Sonny and Jason and Sam were eating up the screen time and everything, they did it in such a way where Carly was not involved in everything. She wasn't involved in everything, and I love that aspect of that, and I just love the way Ron wrote those characters,
Yeah.
and then it did shift a little bit, but it was just I'm sure that it wasn't his choice, but I also once they, as you said, when Sonny went to jail, I loved the Franken wedding. The Franken wedding that was so good. It was such a good show. It was such a good show, man. I loved every aspect of that. I love that Sonny was brought down. I love that Carly was brought down because of Franco.
Hmm.
Uh, and it was freaking beautiful. It was beautiful because we weren't used to that on the show, and Ron did that for us, and I was applauding.
Yeah.
I'm not sorry. I was applauding, and it was. I do miss it. I do miss it. I was very angry that he was let go, but
I think he was done dirty. I've never asked him about it, but I think he was done dirty. You hear the stories about certain actors undermining him publicly and behind the scenes. I tend to think that had something to do with it. He's a talented guy, and I'm glad that he's at Days, and I'm excited about Jamie. To see
I
uh,
know, right?
such an outspoken fan of
Yes,
soaps
so
become new writer. God knows these shows could use new writers. The same writers get recycled through the shows over and over again. So,
I loved
uh,
when I heard he was a part of it. Darrell Anthony
yeah,
as well. When Darrell was talking about how he wrote episodes of the show, I was like, dude, this is amazing.
yes.
You know, it's such a it's such a nice feeling that you're seeing people that you've done podcasts with or done red carpets with as press, or being someone who is outspoken about the genre is actually now writing for the genre, and they're going to do a really good service for that. I think that's a huge flex. I'm so proud. I'm really excited for them. I'm my heart is worrying about Y&R because of what happened over there.
Oh,
Uh,
I know, right? Holy shit!
I love the crew over there. I love the cast, obviously. It really upset me to see what transpired for that. And I
Yeah,
don't know what's coming after that. I mean, obviously he's going to be penning and the scripts and all that other stuff as well, but it's just
it's a
the
lot of
idea that
work for one person.
for one person though, then if you're gonna we talked about a burnout, if you want to talk about a burnout, there's your
Hmm.
burnout right there. So that's just my worry for that. I can't really speak more of it because we don't know, but only because we really don't know any more than what was
Yeah,
said publicly, and now it's
right.
just going like, well,
Yeah.
what's gonna
Just
happen?
imagine trying to do all that work, man. I laugh about Casey the alien, but I just also imagine that some Friday they were like, I don't know, man. What maybe an alien? What if an alien just lands in Port Charles? Like I can imagine that happening on pretty much every daytime show. You get to a point where it's just like, I don't know, punt. What's the weirdest thing that you can think of?
I
So,
mean, hey, Passions came on, and here we are, the
but that was
Supernatural. So
intentionally bizarre.
that
Yeah,
was intentionally bizarre. So there was that. So we were used to it from episode one. So we expected that with that show, and then Days itself was just at the time. I mean, listen, when I got into Days, it, it was Carly buried alive when I got into Days, and then right after that, I got into Mar Devil. Mar Devil was the thing. It was Mar Devil. So seeing that Marlena possession, that was a huge thing at the time, and I didn't even know that there were Marlena clones, but then they brought that up in a recent episode, and I was going like, yeah, I remember. I can't believe they brought the mention of the clones back. So that's another thing to Ron's testament about the
exactly.
I was going
Yes.
like, he found out about the fact there were three Marlena clones that Stefano shipped off across the globe, and they brought it up in a recent episode, and I was going like, oh my god, he knew about it. Awesome. So I thought that was great that history got brought up in there, and it's just when you think about Days, you also think about certain supernatural stuff. Aside from the possession, they also had aliens as well, and the whole thing with Marlena being the killer, where she wasn't a killer, and everybody was still alive, and I was just going like in my head, going like, I'm so glad you got everybody to come back because people left and went and did other work. Matthew Ashford was the prime example because he got killed off. He went to One Life to Live as the music box killer, and
Right.
luckily he got killed off so he could come back as Jack. But he got out of there in due time to return to the show as Jack. But it's just a matter of I just kept laughing into myself, going like, "Oh my god, what if they found out the work? You can't do this story." But it worked out. It worked out for the best. Thank God for that. But you have soaps where you're gonna what fits for that show. Passions obviously from the get go was into the supernatural. Days somewhat had supernatural stuff because James E. Riley was writing the show. Clones didn't really fit on Guiding Light, even though they did Clone. They also did Mob Story, and people thought that didn't fit, but I enjoyed it on Guiding Light. I'm not gonna lie. But there are certain things that Young and the Restless can't do that other soaps can do. They don't expect certain things on the Young and the Restless to fit. They had a tornado or a hurricane. It was one of the two. They didn't think YNR should have a tornado or a hurricane on the show. That's not their style. That's more All My Children or something else. They didn't feel like
Which one of those shows had a talking mannequin recently? Was that YNR or was it Bold and Beautiful?
Bold and Beautiful was the one.
All right.
Yeah. I literally just relegated it to the fact that I feel like this is going to resemble the Fedbots episodes from the Bionic. That's literally what I relegated it to. So I was going like, maybe I'll just have to think of it like that, and I will just get right on through it. Just right on through those shows. I just thought, just go that route and you'll be fine. So that was weird. That was weird. It was a weird time, but yeah, we're not worrying about that anymore. Hopefully.
Well, clearly, I could talk to you about daytime for hours and hours.
Yeah.
The thing that I have to use to power this microphone prevents me from charging my computer at the same time, which means that my laptop is about to die. So,
so we should end this before it dies. So
I'll come back anytime you want to have me, man. I will talk to you about this stuff indefinitely.
Let's do that. We should totally do that. Absolutely. Maybe next time in person when we're out on the West Coast at the same time.
Hey, that sounds great. I am just so glad that you're doing this again.
Yes. Well, me too. So I appreciate that. I appreciate you being that sounding board for me and pushing me. And I'm just glad to be back in it too. So I thank you for sure. I love you.
Right back at you. Right back at you. Always on fleek. Nothing but love for you.
Nothing but love, Heavy D. Nothing but love. Jeff Giles, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. This is great.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you soon. Probably within the next 5 minutes.
Sounds good. Okay.
I'll see you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for tuning into the BUZZCast with Jeff Giles. You can catch previous episodes at our website at buzzworthyradiocast.com. You can visit our Facebook page at Buzzworthy Radio. I'm on Twitter at Buzzworthy Radio as well, Instagram at BuzzNav. You can find our podcast now available on Amazon Music. We are on iTunes. We're on iHeartRadio, and of course, Spreaker. But that's it for me right now. I'm Nabel J. Lee, making sure you keep getting the latest buzz with Buzzworthy Radio. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.